So let's get to your. So is that your only property? Is that it?
Like I was gonna buy more. So back in 2014, I was done with the Blue Alamo. I had it up and going. We had those units rented for like 1350,
Wow.
unfurnished, and because there was just nothing else to compete with, man. We were the first nice thing on the block. I mean, all the stuff downtown hadn't been built up yet, and so like I rented. I remember I got the first unit done, and I was like, well, let's see if we can get $1,100 for it. Why not? So I put it on Craigslist, and it rented in a day. And I was like, maybe we should do more if it rented in less than 24 hours. So then we put it for 1,250 for the next day, the next unit that came available about a month later, because we were kind of finished them incrementally with appliances and flooring and all this. And that rented in a few days. And then I was like, all right, you know what? The third one, I'm just going to put like something ridiculous, 1,350. Why not? And then like the same hour I had it listed, a lady came and moved in the next day. She was like, I love it. It's beautiful. I want to live downtown. Here's a check for the deposit for the next 3 months rent. I don't care. Whatever you need, have fun. If I need anything, I'll call you. I'm like, yes, ma'am. And that's why I wanted to be in high-end property, man, because the problems people have when they make a ridiculous amount of money are much different than the problems you have when people don't have the $25 for their Section 8.
Sure.
Completely different tenant equation. And that was kind of my goal. Like, I wanted to be able to put it on autopilot and be able to take off and go travel for years and not have to worry if the electricity is going to get paid or if we're going to have someone selling drugs out of the building or something like that. So I didn't really see a way to hedge my bets with lower end properties. Not that there's anything wrong with D and C class property. You can do incredibly well. I mean, you could print money with those properties, but you have to run them really hard, really fast, and keep a very watchful eye. And it's pretty hard to do that when you're not in the country.
When you're in Turkey.
Exactly. I mean, like it's impossible. So that was kind of the idea. But yeah, back in 2015, I actually was going to buy another 39 units there in the Plaza District. I met some friends, and they had these properties for a while, and they were kind of like, well, we want to get out of the real estate game, and they were older and wanting to not really retire, just not work in real estate. And I was talking with them, and we kind of came to a price, and everything was rolling really hard, really straightforward. And basically what happened, the bank was good to go. All the appraisals and everything came back, and they were just a little low, probably because I asked the landlords there that I was buying the property from not to release 3 apartments because I wanted to remodel a handful of them, so we could have some higher end stuff and then some lower end stuff and kind of something in between. My plan was to funnel stuff from Blue Alamo to this other property that was even closer to the Plaza District, actually right there on Indiana where you were talking about with your sixplex that you had. And the idea was, well, if you can't afford Blue Alamo, that's great. That's like our top tier. But then we have some other stuff that damn near half price. And then some other stuff kind of in between that. So that way we can kind of feel more of a market void. But I think everything happens for a reason. Like the stars didn't align, we weren't able to pull the deal together due to financing. And I got to be honest, man. I just said, you know what? My goal is to go travel and live the dream life. I've made my dream a reality as far as finances are concerned. What am I going to do with more money? I mean, really, like, I'm not going to be happier with more money. I mean, don't get me wrong. Having more is always great, but at some point you have to say, like, what's your freedom number? What's your financial goal? Like, end all be all. And for me, I was like, man, I can go travel. I can go ride a motorcycle and not have to worry if I'm going to put gas in it.
Yeah. So, well, let's do that. So you got your thing leased out. You're getting top dollar for it. You've hired a management company to manage it for you, so they can collect the rents and do the change it. Do the make readies and stuff when people move out and all that. So, tell me about when you first decided to hit the road. You set all that up. And tell us about the process of getting your mind ready to leave it behind and just get on a motorcycle and take off.
Well,
and when was that? When did you do that?
That was in 2015. So that was about the time this building didn't happen. Man, it had to be like probably January or February of 2015. That building didn't close. It might have been March at the very latest. I think it was March now that I think about it. And you know what? I was like, well, I've already backpacked a little bit before. Like I'd backpack through Peru and Thailand and Indonesia. I would work for a year and then quit my job and just take a hiatus. Like, because when I work 6 days a week, 10, 12 hours a day. I'm a maniac. I'm like, I don't make money until I start making overtime. So the first 2 days or 3 days of my week are just showing up so I can get to the overtime. And then I would keep working and working. And with aviation, if you like to work a lot and you like to work holidays and weird shifts like 2 in the afternoon till 2 in the morning, my golly, they got you covered. But I didn't care because I was so hungry. I was just thinking every dollar I get, I was kind of in the Dave Ramsey state of mind, like not really paying off debt so much, but just saving and building and trying to get more financial stability. And so
Sure.
I had already backpacked enough to know, man, I'm 6'5", brother. I don't fit in buses. It sucks riding in airplanes. When you're a big dude, man, like you got to buy 2 seats or something, or like you're going to be very friendly with your neighbor on the bus or the airplane or the train or any other public transport. And I grew up riding motorcycles. I love motocross. I love dirt bikes. So I guess the dream when I was a kid was, man, I'd love to ride a motorcycle in South America. I remember reading National Geographic about the Inca people down in Peru with Machu Picchu. And I'd actually visited Machu Picchu with a backpack and just went around for about a month. And that's really what sparked the idea, man. I was riding this bus from Lima to Cusco. And so it was coming from the coast up in the mountains. And it just looked like a wet piece of spaghetti, man. Just crazy, twisty, beautiful roads. And the whole time I'm thinking, why the hell am I not on a motorcycle? It would be paradise. So with that in mind, I was like, I'm going to Peru with the motorcycle. I didn't know how I was going to get there. I didn't know what visas or insurance or any of that. I just bought a motorcycle, and a week later I was down in Mexico. And I figured I would figure it out. I mean, it can't be that hard. I'm not the first person to do it. Anything that you can solve with a check, it's not really a problem. So
you bought a motorcycle and drove it down to Mexico?
Yeah, exactly. I bought a bike there in Oklahoma City. Met a guy, his wife, fiance. He was about to get married. I found him on Craigslist. He's like, I've been trying to sell this bike for the last few days. It's too early in the season. It was still March or maybe April. It was cold. No one wants to ride. I was like, look, brother, I got some money here. I laid, I think, like $5,000 down on the gas tank. The bike was probably worth a little bit more than that, maybe 7 or 8. It was not like the steal of a deal, but I was like, this bike has everything I need. I just need to put a different seat on it, and I'm ready to roll. And so,
was it kind of an enduro on and off road bike? Okay.
Yeah. So this was a Suzuki V-Strom 650. This is not like a flashy BMW, like, I'm a pretty big deal. I'm an adventure rider. This is a very reliable 2-cylinder V-twin. You could take it on gravel roads. It's not really a dirt bike, man. It's too heavy to really go crushing it. But I mean, you could tackle some stuff. And the point with that bike is it's very reliable. And it's probably the best bike you can have for the money. I mean, it's just bulletproof. You never have to do a damn thing to it. Put gas in it, change the oil, and just ride it. It was awesome. And man, I rode that bike 54,000 miles down through Central and South America over 3 years. Never had a problem. I mean, tires, sprockets, chains, normal stuff. But I mean, that's what motorcycles are. You just fix it and keep riding. And man, like I just had such a blast. And when I first went into Mexico, because of all the news and the media, like I'd never really known anything about Mexico. I just envisioned like everything I've ever heard, like narcos and rape dungeons, and it's just I'm gonna have my head cut off immediately.
Yeah, it sounds dangerous as hell, from what you hear in the media.
And that was exactly, and that was the same mentality I had. And I'm not gonna say you can't find that. Like if you go out looking for some trouble, brother, you can find it. You can find it hard, fast, and furious. But if you're just a normal guy, not looking to sell keys of coke or anything ridiculous, just ride your motorcycle, drink beer, chase girls, whatever, no problem at all. And man, like it was so liberating. Like after working, at this point, I think I was about 27. So I'd been working really about 10 years as an aircraft mechanic, as a full-time trying to get real estate going and moving. And I think people overestimate what they can do in 1 year, but we underestimate what we can do in 10 years. And
Absolutely.
I think that's like, I read that somewhere, maybe in like a Zig Ziglar book or something a long time ago. And that stuck with me, man, because I lost so much money in the beginning with my apartment, man. I could have paid to go to Harvard. I mean, in cash. But I mean, if I would have gone to Harvard, I still would have had to work a job and get a W-2, pretend like my life matters. And I don't know, like, so, Yeah, that was really it, man. It was not a planned thing. I just knew I was going to go to Peru on a motorcycle, and I bought the bike that I wanted, and it was the color I wanted. It was the right size, the right weight, comfortable, fun. And I hadn't been on a motorcycle in probably 6 to 7 years because I sold my bike to pay for aircraft mechanics school. School ain't cheap in the States, man.
So your trip to Peru turned into a 3-year trek around South America, basically. And so, how did you fund that deal? You were getting checks from your fourplex from the property management company. Did you ever have any? So, what were you living off of? What it cost you to do that every month?
Sure. So yeah, I can actually tell you exactly what it costs because it's fun to me to track things like gas mileage and expenditures and these kind of things. Not really because like I'm frugal. It's just interesting to see like the difference. So in the United States, I truly believe it's impossible to live for $1,000 in 1 month today. Like in today's money, in today's time, even if you were renting a room and driving an old shit car and had just a cell phone and nothing more, and just pay for food. You didn't have a nightlife. You didn't go out and socialize. I don't think you can live on $1,000 a month. But in Mexico, Central America, South America, I never spent more than $1,000. I mean, it wasn't that I was trying to be frugal. It's just when you can eat for $2 at a restaurant, I mean, it's like, okay, now I can go drink and the beer's pretty cheap. So you drink for, I don't know, $5 or $6. Okay, well, you spent $8 and had an awesome night. In the States, I mean, I don't think you can have a beer for $8 at a bar. There it is. That's it.
Well, where'd you spend the night? Did you sleep in a tent? Did you sleep in hostels? Is that what they're called? Where were you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I did a little bit of everything, man. In the beginning, I was kind of wary of camping because I mean, I'd camped before, but I was a kid and like it was with family and friends, and I'd never just gone out into the wild nature and lived in the middle of nowhere. So I was always staying in hotels and hostels because they're $10 a night. I mean, or less. So my mind, like you have a warm bed, you have a hot shower, you have Wi-Fi, and breakfast included for $10. I can't afford to put up my tent. Like at some point, you have to say, what is your time worth? And for me, just to have breakfast is worth the $10. Everything else is an added bonus after that. So yeah. That was really, I mean, I do camp. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy camping because there's a lot of beautiful things to see. And sometimes you have to go way out in the middle of nowhere, which is the nice part about the motorcycle. You can do that. But if it's late in the day, I don't like to ride at night. I'll pitch up the hammock or the tent, camp it out, and make a little bonfire, have a good night. That's kind of one thing I've really started to enjoy over the last few years. It's been the Million-Star Hotel. I give it a big thumbs up, man.
Million-Star Hotel. I like that. So you've got the property management company sending you, you're living off $1,000 a month or less.
Sure.
Do you ever get in a pinch where like 3 people move out, things get tight, or there's a huge make ready and you're like, oh shit, man, I don't, but I'm guessing you got reserves. You probably have some reserves set aside.
That's exactly it, man. I mean, I think like, you would be insane to think everyone is going to go follow the rules and do what they're supposed to all the time if nothing's ever going to break, right? So in my mind, I had a brand new building. So in theory, everything had already kind of been test run. Like we already found the little hiccup, like the one power outlet didn't work or it was flipping the circuit breaker, this kind of stuff. Like you'll have that with a new project, just like you would anything else. But I had the property leased up and going for probably a good 6 or 8 months at that point. So we had all the bugs and kinks worked out. But there was a few times where we had some major issues, like 2 people moved out and a tree fell and we didn't have money coming in and we had a lot of money going out. And this is kind of the whole idea. Like if you pad the bank account with a little reserve, it can kind of like a shock absorber. You take some of that hit. So my goal every year was to put $5,000 extra into the bank account for the LLC. And so like the idea was like the first year I left with $5,000 and then everything above $5,000 went to me, like into my personal account. So that's how I paid to go travel. That's how I paid for gas. That's how I paid for food and booze and all this kind of stuff. So the next year, that was in 2015. So 2016 was $10,000. And then the idea was every year another $5,000. So everything above $10,000, and then the next year 15. So everything above 15, and then at the point once you have $20,000 or $30,000 in a bank account, you kind of have to say like, okay, that's probably enough to see us through. Like, you don't need $90 million in the bank to make sure a doorknob doesn't break or something like that.
Sure, sure. Nice, nice. Very cool. Very cool. So you did the South America thing. You came back.
Mhm. Yep.
You had enough of that. I think you had a girlfriend there for a little while. You picked up a hitchhiker.
Exactly.
And
Yeah,
traveled
you
with
know,
you.
you never plan for this kind of stuff because I'm not the guy to be married or have kids and have a white picket fence house. And
Let's go. Let me go into that for a second. So I don't. We can cut this out if you want me to. But
oh man, I'm sure, man. The people need an authentic experience. I don't want to screw around.
Okay,
and
okay.
like,
So
oh,
you're
I'm a perfect person, but
you're so serious about your lifestyle that you went and got a vasectomy a few years
yeah,
ago.
man. Imagine, like, because I think it's important to know what you want. It's also important to know what you don't want, and those are two very different things, right?
Sure, sure. So when I heard that, I was like, this dude is committed to the lifestyle.
Look, brother, you burn the bridges and let them light the way forward, right? Because I mean, really, in my mind's eye, it's the responsible thing to do. Like, if you know you don't want to have children and you're out there chasing girls, for example, you can only wave your gun around long enough, and eventually it's going to go off and shoot somebody. I mean, that's just a law of numbers, dude. So my thought is, like, obviously use protection and protect yourself, duh. But like, it's like not an insurance policy. That's not really the right word. But the idea is like not to have any. Oh, oops. I guess. Well, now we have a kid because I've seen this happen with many travelers, and even my parents. I mean, I was a nuke. My mom thought I was the flu.
Yeah, we don't want to have to see Nate settle down in a remote Mexican village with his new family.
I mean, I don't mind that. I'm not very good at settling. That's the problem. Like, I've never settled for anything in my life, let alone settling down. My God, like it could be a nightmare. But
Or you might have to get a sidecar for your motorcycle with your wife and kid.
Laugh about it. I met a guy in Ecuador. He had his girlfriend with him. He met her in Colombia. They actually had a baby. He put a sidecar on his motorcycle and continued on, man. I was like,
that's hilarious.
That dude, man, he had balls, bro. I was like, you know what? Like, I appreciate that. Like, you had a dream and you made it happen. It wasn't like, well, I guess my life's over now. He said, you know what? We loaded up the family. They even had a dog. They had the baby, the wife had a dog, and they took the bike with the sidecar, and they just made it happen. And I was like, I was inspired by that, honestly. So I think if there's a will, there's a way. You can make it happen.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you come back. You've done the South America thing. You and the girlfriend, you know, you go your separate ways.
Such is life. I mean, these things happen. I mean, because the real reason why I came back home was my mother. She wasn't doing so well. She had a heart condition for many years, and
Gotcha.
I was down at they call it Fin de la Mando. So it's the end of the world. It's farthest south you can drive in the world. It's called Ushuaia. So in the tip of South America, there's a little island called Tierra del Fuego, and it's half Chilean and it's half Argentinian, and there's a little bit of a struggle who owns what, but essentially, this is a part of Argentina, and it's the southmost point in the world you can drive to. And that was kind of my goal after Peru. Like, I made it there, and I saw Machu Picchu again, and I rode the bike on the road that inspired me to bring the bike to Peru. But after that, I was like, man, I'm having a great time. What am I going to go home for? So let's keep it going. That was like, I don't know, another year on the road or something. And, man, this was 2017. I can't remember the year. Sorry. Dates elude me. I take a lot of pictures because I can't remember anything. So, long story long, I remember talking with my mom, and I used to call her about once a week. Call in, check in, kind of tell her what I'm doing. And that's the beauty. We have technology where you can do that. You can FaceTime and WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger, and there's a million ways to video call, and it's free or damn near it. And so we were doing that. And I could just tell something wasn't quite right. She didn't tell me to come home, but like, something in the back of my mind said, okay, sell the bike. And a few weeks later, I went back to Santiago, Chile, beautiful city, sold the bike to another traveler, flew home. I got to spend a few months with Mom before she passed away. And it's the best decision I ever made. Thank God every day I did it. I'm very, very thankful for that time. That was huge, man. That was absolutely, I mean, for me, like, I'd give everything I have I had like the perfect last day with my mother. And how many people can say they got to do that? Like, I mean, we talked about everything, childhood, adulthood, and even about my girlfriend at the time, and about my lifestyle. And even though my mother necessarily doesn't approve of everything that I do, she still supported me. And I can say she was always my number one cheerleader. I didn't ever have to question that. So that was the huge thing. I'm glad I got to go home.
What was it, that trip when me and you hung out and went for a ride? Okay. I mean, I think
it had to be.
I think you were between trips at that time. You would come back from South America, but you were getting ready. You were just about a week away or 2 weeks away from going to Yugoslavia. No,
Yeah, I think,
the Ukraine.
yeah, exactly. So like when I came back home and I met you, I rode my motorcycle again, another motorcycle, this time a much more dirt friendly motorcycle, more than the V-Strom. This motorcycle is called an X Challenge. So I kind of modified a little bit of everything: the suspension, the wheels, the frame. It's a Frankenstein bike, but I made it the way
that thing's a beast, man.
Oh, bro, this thing, it ripped. Dude, I was up in the mountains today, and I was just like, I was cruising. I was 50, 60 miles an hour on these dirt roads. And I remember thinking, like, just today, like, I just blasted it. The V-Strom, I mean, there's no way. It just doesn't have the suspension. It's too heavy. And the whole goal was to make something light and reliable. And I kind of hit the nail on the head. But, man, like, the motorcycle just adds so much to the journey and to the trip. So I bought this bike after my mom passed away. And I kind of outfitted it. It took me about 2 months because I built like a custom aluminum fuel tank to hold more fuel. So now I can go about 330 miles. So I hold 6 gallons of gas total because the main tank on the bike originally only held like 2 gallons. But man, it's not enough to go and see anything long term. Because I mean, there was times down in Mexico, I didn't see a gas station in town for 3 or 4 days, just riding out in the desert. You see some cactus, coyotes, and you hope you got enough water because otherwise it's going to be.
Have you ever run out of gas?
I have twice, and I hate myself because one time I was like, I think I could make it. That'll be okay. And it was actually in Mexico, and the wind was blowing against me with a headwind. And my bike, when it's loaded up, it has these panniers and bags and stuff, and it catches so much wind. And I knew I could go 300 miles. Well, on that particular day, I could only make it 297 miles. And I know that because the bike ran out as I rolled into the town. I had to push it like 10 minutes down the road to get it. And it was like 110 degrees, 100% humidity on the Gulf Coast of Mexico. And I'm just like, I'm dying, man. I'm sweating. I'm pushing the bike. I'm like, all right, never again. I'm not doing this again. Like I'm going to make sure I stop and make myself get gas. Then the other time I ran out of gas, I originally did it to check the actual fuel level. So I did that one on purpose. I was at a gas station, and this is after we made the tank and all the customizations and stuff. So I wanted to make sure I did the math right on the dimensions of the tank and the line. So
gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, it holds 6.1 gallons of usable fuel, and we know that twice.
Nice. So you came back. And did you take a trip here in the States? Did you go to California or something and do a ride?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of did a little road trip to see family in the West Coast and the East Coast, my grandparents, because, man, I'd been gone for years. And as great as video calls are, there's a lot to be said for hugging your grandma's neck, you know, I mean, or like seeing your aunts and uncles and hanging out on the beach. I mean, for me, I was like, I don't have a rush. There's no reason for me to hurry. So I'm going to take a road trip, go see family, go see friends. And if you're not reliant on time, you can fly actually really cheap in the United States or anywhere in the world. Like you can just find the days that are cheaper on different applications and be like, oh, I think I'll fly next Thursday because it's only $106. Or you could be more time dependent. If you don't have a lot of luggage, there's like budget airlines and stuff where you can fly for like $40. And like,
gotcha.
You can't drive there for $40. So of course I took advantage of that being back home because so basically what happened is I bought this the X Challenge, the 650 I have now, and modified it, and I went down into Mexico, and man, that was actually 2 years ago last week in November. It was actually on my mom's birthday, of all things. We didn't plan that, but my mom was born on November 17th, and some friends of mine wanted to come down with me to Mexico for this trip. They brought the bike, and they got everything ready, and they worked jobs, so they got the Friday off or whatever, and we rode down to Mexico. And the day we crossed into Mexico was the next day, and it was my mom's birthday. And we didn't plan that. I didn't even realize it until I had an application, my Google Calendar sent me a notification because my mom passed away the year before that. And I was like, man, how awesome is this? I start my next trip on my mom's birthday. And there's not planning. It wasn't like, okay, guys, need to circle around this. It just so happened all my friends had the schedules line up and we all got together and we had a blast, man. We got to ride for a little while down together. And then I went solo for probably 5 or 6 months down through Mexico. And then I shipped the bike over to Europe. I didn't know it was possible, and technically it's not legal to do it. But I made friends with the captain. Met him in a bar down in Veracruz, Mexico. Had a couple of beers. He said he'd roll it on and say it's his motorcycle, and then roll it off in Belgium. Well, originally it was supposed to be in the UK, in England, and it took about 4 or 5 weeks to do that. So my plan was to fly into the UK, which is outside of the European Union now, thanks to Brexit, and it's outside of the Schengen. So in the Schengen countries, there's like 26 countries, and they all have an agreement. There's no borders like Belgium, Germany, France, all these countries. But as an American, we can only stay for 90 days. So I didn't want to waste time getting the motorcycle unloaded and if anything broke on the ship or anything like that. And sure enough, the bike, instead of going to the United Kingdom, it actually went to Belgium, which was in the Schengen. And sure enough, things were broken. So luckily, a good friend of mine I actually met in Colombia, and I rode down 3 years ago before that, rode with him, with my ex-girlfriend, and him and his ex-girlfriend. We both had like 4 people and 2 bikes, and we rode together through Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, and we stayed in touch on social media. And sure enough, he's like, "Yeah, man, I got a garage, I got an extra bedroom, come stay. You're my guest. My home's your home." And we worked on my bike for a few days. And got
I remember
everything
seeing that on I remember following that on social media. That you took it
yeah,
to a shop and you guys started.
Yeah, man. We had to go pretty deep into it because all the stuff that I modified, when they tied down the bike on the boat, I think what happened is like the waves and stuff just kind of did this for 5 weeks, and it just snapped the bolts, man. I mean, so basically what we did is just drilled the holes bigger, used bigger bolts that were much harder. Here we are, a year and a half later, and another 30,000 miles, still gripping and ripping, man. Locked and loaded, no problems there.
Wow. So you kind of illegally had to sneak your bike over to.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because Mexico has so many restrictions. You can bring bikes from Europe into Mexico and then take them back out, but you can't send bikes from Mexico to Europe. But there's like some kind of like regulation where it's like tit for tat. And I think the problem is motorcycles and stuff maybe are a little bit more cheaper in Mexico, and you can bring them to Europe and then import them and not pay taxes. I think that's what they're trying to do.
Oh, that's probably it.
I don't know if that's really what it is, but that's what it makes most sense, just the way the rules and stuff are set.
Okay, so tell me.